So, as a lot of you guys know, I'm sort of newish, very newish to Washington State. I'm married to a woman who really loves the outdoors, which is great. It forces me to get out. I like it. I just don't love it, There's other things I'd rather be doing. But I get out a lot. And so for the last 7 months we've been here, we've been going around and hiking a lot. We went hiking yesterday. We're going to go up to Leavenworth later today, go see the beautiful things that Washington State has to offer. And we spent a lot of time walking around in the forests, hiking, because that's free. And you can tote 4 kids around, and it's a really good use of a day. And one thing that's unique in the forests of the Pacific Northwest as opposed to the Northeast where we came from is that your trees are almost entirely pine trees, right? Lots and lots of pine trees, lots of different sorts of pine trees, but all in that variety. And the other day, Molly and I were hiking up. We were hiking up Little Si, and I was just looking around. What else can you do? You walk and you look. That's hiking. And the thing about pines, I noticed, is that they've all really adapted to survive. They're very adaptable. You notice in the forest here is that all the branches, like especially in a thick grove of pines, the branches below the canopy, below the part where the sunlight is creeping through, the branches end up not having greenery on it. And over time, they die, they become brittle, they get knocked off. They're not necessary to the point where you'll get like 100 feet of no branches, and then at the very top, you'll just have the crown of branches, right? They've shed those old branches because those old branches, shaded as they weren't helping them grow. They weren't contributing to their growth any longer. And so, they're just these long things all the way up to the canopy. And as I was thinking about these trees, and I realized trees aren't people, okay. I was thinking about, you got to think about something while you're hiking. So I realized something. These trees, like serene and beautiful, are actually like, if we think about it, they're in sort of a lifelong, drawn-out quest for sunlight. They're looking for the sun. They've shed those old branches because those branches weren't helping them grow. They're actually draining resources from that tree. So the necessity of the sun, the necessity for the sun, for the tree to find sun is shaping the way it is existing, the way it's being. And that behavior, it's funny because it's entirely contextual. It's based on where the tree exists, because if you took the same tree and you planted it in the middle of, like, say, a field where there wasn't a lot of shade, that same tree, if it had access to sunlight, it would keep all of its branches. It wouldn't lose those bottom branches. It would grow and it would flourish and it would look like a nice Christmas tree that you want to put in Rockefeller Center, right? Like one of those giant ones. It would grow, it would thrive, it would reach full maturity. And what's true about life in these forests or in life in the suburbs of Seattle is that there's a lot of ways to live life. There's a lot of ways to go through life. The trees that are in survival mode, they're kind of competing for sunlight. They're carefully managing their resources. They are alive. But if they stopped growing and they stopped managing their resources, they would soon be overtaken by those other trees, and they wouldn't have as much sun, and they might not grow as high, and they might die. But a tree that's planted in a sunny place, it will thrive because it has access to what it needs in any season. There's sun, even in the Pacific Northwest. There's a little bit of sun. There's enough sun for the tree to continue to grow. And I don't think it takes much imagination to kind of understand where I'm going with this, to understand the connection with our lives. See, we all aspire to live to the fullest. That's it, just you want to live, you want to thrive, you want to enjoy life. And that's the promise of life in America in 2020, that we can have it all, that we can really, really just live life. And it's an awesome thing. It's a good promise. Everyone wants to live the good life. We all want what I'm going to call throughout the series the 4 Ps. I'm going to put them up there. We all want passion, purpose, peace, and productivity. It just worked out that way. Actually, there were 3 Ps and 1 I, and I made that I into a P because I'm a pastor, and you take a whole class in seminary on alliteration. It's really important stuff, guys, just like Jesus did. I'm joking. But I was really happy that it worked out that way. In the back sorry, let me just get back on track here. We all want those. Everyone has that desire. The desire to thrive is written into our DNA. It's written into our soul. It's how we were created. We desire to have passion, purpose, peace, and productivity, and God has made us that way. There's nothing wrong with that. But many of us, myself included at times, in the back of our minds, we are wondering. We're asking questions like, well, if I'm supposed to feel passion, then why do I feel numb at times or all the time? If my life is supposed to have purpose, then why does it feel this way? Why does life sometimes feel like it doesn't have meaning? Why does my job and my family life not satisfy the way that I feel like it ought to? If peace is possible, if I'm supposed to have peace, if I was created to have peace, then why am I restless? Why am I anxious? Why can't I enjoy myself? If productivity is possible, why do I feel like I'm always behind, never able to catch up despite my best efforts? And as we jump into this new series, I want us to understand something. I really do believe, and I believe that Jesus shows us that we can have full and meaningful lives. We should not just say, oh, well, that's for other people. If we're going to be people who know Jesus and we walk with him, we're going to have full, meaningful lives. We can have passion, we can have purpose, we can have peace, we can have productivity. And I actually believe this is part of Jesus' vision for our lives, what our lives ought to be. We were made to have those things. See, if you've been around church, we tend to think of the gospel, that is the message that Jesus went around proclaiming throughout his ministry, as relating exclusively to our spiritual lives. Like what does that even mean? But we put it in a little box within our minds, and we put that label, we write spiritual things, and it's different from the other boxes that we have in our mind, where we put things like work and family and fun, right? And we have little boxes, and we think that what Jesus was talking about was about the stuff in that box. And we tend to think of our spiritual lives as limited to just our beliefs about how the world is, like metaphysics or something like that. But as much as Jesus definitely taught us about how to believe, he had a lot to say about that, he also teaches us how to be. He was discipling his disciples, teaching them how to live, showing them his way, and he commended his way of being to them to be imitated. Like Jesus embodied and had a life that was full of connection. He had all these things. He had passion, purpose, peace, productivity. He had a full life, and he invited his disciples to have that same thing in the same way that he has. He doesn't only give his life as a sacrifice for them, he teaches them how to live in light of his action, in light of what he's doing and what he's done. See, we get saved by Jesus' sacrifice. That's the only way that we can have this life with God. And that's really what it's about having a life with God. We are saved from an alienation, a separation from God brought about by our sin, right? And Jesus died so that he could save us from that separation, from that alienation, so that all the things that are keeping us from fullness of life, that is knowing God and being right in his plan, he's taken those things away. He's saved us. He saved us from sin, but we have to understand this. He has saved us to life with God. We get to leave sin, separation, wickedness behind, and instead we get brought into this new place where we can enjoy a life with God. That is definitely a part of the promise of the gospel. You can have life with God, and it's good. We can have a life characterized by the fullness of coming to know the living God who created all things, who actually cares about us. And there's real life in that. Jesus said in John 10:10, I have come that they may have life and have it abundantly. Jesus isn't saying, just get by until you die. He's saying, live life, have it abundantly. I'm inviting you in. You can have passion, purpose, peace, productivity. You can have a meaningful and full life. At least you can if you want to go the way of Jesus. What Jesus promises is abundant life, a life like a tree planted in a sunny place, fully thriving, fully becoming what it's made to be, secure, stable. This week, we're going to go each week, we're going to focus on one of these P's, right? And this week, we're going to focus on passion. And I really think, like, if we look around in culture, like, we really love that word. We love that word, passion. Everybody wants passion. Like if you don't have passion, like, who are you, man? Like, what is your life even about? It's a cultural value. Everyone wants to feel deeply, especially in our age. And that's funny. It's like passion is really just about deep emotional feeling. And that's the thing. We want to feel. We want to feel deeply in our age. And look at, I just want to say this. Of course we do. Of course we do. Sometimes Christians or very serious people, we poo-poo the idea of feelings. But let me just say, for the record, your emotional life is a part of who you are, and it really actually does matter. You're not going to mature out of your feelings. That's not what maturity is. That's not progress. But so many of us are living our lives like we need to shed our feelings, like a branch that's just holding us back and draining our resources and getting us focused away from the things that actually matter. Let me make this clear. God is not calling you to get over your feelings. You can have passion. God-directed, God-shaped, God-connected, grace-filled passion, yes. You can have a fully, emotionally satisfying life as you follow Jesus in the way of Jesus. And I know, like some of you guys are sitting here, you're skeptical. Well, what does that really mean? And I get it. I was skeptical. You're thinking, man, some of that stuff that Jesus said, like you think of some of those things that Jesus said, like how does that work? Like how does it work to have a fully emotionally satisfying life and to follow Jesus? Because it feels like that doesn't work out together. Maybe you feel like that's like coddling your emotions and giving into the flesh. We think of verses like Matthew 16:24. Jesus says this, said to his disciples, if anyone wishes to continue after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Where's the emotional life? Well, come on. So when I say that we can have a full emotional life, how does that square with denying myself? Doesn't Jesus call me to be serious and to follow him seriously, to die to myself, to sacrifice, to serve? And doesn't that mean, if that's the way, doesn't that mean putting my big boy pants on, right? Putting on my big boy pants and just doing what I'm called to do despite my feelings? Isn't that what Jesus is telling me to do? Because I feel like that's what Jesus is telling me to do. And I can find a number of people who will tell me, yeah, that's it. Just put on your big boy pants and be serious, and then you'll do what Jesus is calling you to do. Can you guess who I'm about to quote? Dallas Willard. That's right, Dallas Willard. It's going to keep going. I really love it. He makes an important distinction here, commenting on this verse. He says this. Put it up there, yeah. We are dealing with death to self, not death of self. The distinction between these presuppositions is vital to maintain. Death to self is not ultimately a negation, but a rising up into the very life of God. Thus, our lives are saved by his life. One problem that has hindered this teaching in the past is that those presenting it have not carefully drawn the distinction between death to self and death of self. As a result, people view death to self as a means of getting rid of yourself. That is not at all what it involves. You were not put here on earth to get rid of yourself. That is not what it involves. You were put here to be a self, to live fully as a self. The worth of the self, yourself, is inestimable, and God's intent for you is to become a fully realized self as you make a grace-fueled movement from the old self to the new self. Death to self is not getting rid of yourself. It's not shedding that old parts of yourselves for the sake of survival or thriving. It's not trading one thing for another in that sense. It's not dying. Something like something essential doesn't have to die. Something that's getting in your way has to die. It's not becoming some walking dead zombie for Jesus who has no feelings. Rather, dying to self is having the self that you are consumed by the grace of God, made complete and whole and sufficient because of the kindness and work of Jesus Christ, his faithfulness to you, his calling to know you, to save you, to wash you clean. It is that, on that basis, that you can have life. And you have that because Jesus actually cares about you. Cares about you enough not to leave you the same, but also cares about you enough not to just call you to something that is not actually good, that's actually going to destroy you. Instead, he does what only he can do. He brings us from not through coddling, but through love, from a place of alienation to a place of knowing him. But of course, in our culture, right, and let's talk about the other side of that, in our culture, thinking about self gets a little bit complicated. Because while some of us tend to be hard on ourselves, right, some of us really approach life through this lens of being serious, others pursue fullness through self-indulgence. That's a problem as well. Let's just say that. That is a problem as well. Charles Taylor, a Canadian philosopher, he talks about culture and secularism, and he really studied a lot about identity. And he really says that from the 1960s up to this period, we have been living in what he calls the age of authenticity. And by that, what Taylor means is that the highest cultural value that we have in the Western world, in the United States, Europe, places like that, is to be authentic. To be an authentic self is man, that is where it's at. That's what everyone's going for. And our ideas about what's good and what's right are deeply connected to our sense of what is authentic. And by that same token, in authenticity, things that feel forced or imposed or manufactured are looked at with real skepticism. In 2021, there is no greater sin in the culture than inauthenticity. And so dying to self seems like it must be some sort of unforgivable form of self-violence. How can it be that to be my true self, to have life, I have to get rid of myself? That does not compute, really. Because what could be more authentic than to find or discover your true self? Isn't that what life's all about? Isn't that where true satisfaction is going to come from? Look, I'm not bringing up this idea just to pan it. I just say it's simply what it is. This is kind of the cultural assumptions that we have that authenticity is going to lead me to fullness of life. And certainly, I think there's something valuable about that idea. Look at what it shows us, at the very least, is that we as people are really primed to be looking for inner satisfaction. We are not, in our culture, stoics. That is not the condition that we live in, right? We're romantics. We want to express ourselves and find our true selves. We're looking for real resonance. We want to get in touch with the universe or whatever. We want to have some sense of the transcendent in our culture. We assume that what is true will speak to our inner selves and make us feel alive, and we assume that if something is true, it will just feel true. It's interesting. And just to be very clear, I'm arguing here that the gospel of Jesus Christ is the only true thing. It's the only true thing. Jesus shows us the way to a fully and deeply satisfying life, one that both engages our emotion and our desire for authenticity. But I think it's worth noting that a lot of things that don't actually satisfy can make us, at least for a time, feel complete. There's a lot in life that makes you feel authentic. I'm going to give you a fun little example. I'm going to make fun of myself a little bit. When I was 12 years old, I had an older brother. He's like a year and a half older than me, and he was into lots of bad things. So I got into bad things because, Mom wasn't that careful. Sorry, Mom. I discovered a Smashing Pumpkins album, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, a cassette tape, a double cassette tape, like the really thick ones. It was awesome. And I discovered it. And I pressed play, and I listened to it. And after I listened to that Smashing Pumpkins album, I had discovered my true self. That's what it felt like. I just listened to this music, and I was like, this is me. This guy is expressing everything that I feel within myself. And so all of a sudden, I was 12, and like 12-year-olds, you're just no one's giving you fashion advice yet. But all of a sudden, I had fashion advice from the Smashing Pumpkins, right? And I took on this identity because I found something in music, and I really threw myself into the world of music. I found a sense of belonging and completeness and fullness there. And so I changed how I dressed, and I bought into that world. I bought music. I stole music on the internet, but that's what we did then. It wasn't against the law then. Later it was, and I still did it for a little while, and then I stopped. I got into music. I changed how I dressed. I got friends who looked like me. I lived in the Bay Area at the time. I would get on the BART train. I would go to Berkeley and hang out with street kids. But I was a rich suburb kid. But they liked me because I had money, so I bought them things. It's great. Because I was my true self, man. I'm just a punk rocker. Oh, but I live in a really... oh, gosh. It's so funny, so funny. I was thinking I was finding my true self. And then between sophomore and freshman year, I moved to Connecticut. I moved to the East Coast, and I got into a new school. And I found some other, kids who were into my same music, and they dressed like me and acted like me. But I actually didn't click with them that much. And I felt it was this isn't really, it's really speaking to me anymore. I'm not feeling this anymore. And so of course, what did I do? I went to Manhattan, where you can buy every feeling and every sense of authenticity if you have enough money. So I went to Manhattan, and I went to the Upper West Side, and I found the Diesel store. Diesel's like a clothing store. And I bought a $120 pair of jeans, and I put those jeans on, and I was myself again. Oh, I felt so good in those jeans. I didn't know it all of this time. All I needed was these jeans, and then I was my authentic self, and I totally took on this whole new style, and I became a new person, my new authentic self, right? That's who I was now. I'm having fun. I'm having fun with myself. But let me be clear. I was then, and I remain a person who desires to feel fully alive, to have some sort of sense of completion, some sort of connection to the outer world and to other people. My punk rock albums made me feel that way. Those jeans made me feel that way. A lot of things in life will give you a sense of authenticity and trueness. And part of how God has designed you is He gave you an emotional life. He made you to enjoy all the fullness of the human experience, and that is not inherently unspiritual. And most of us are looking for passion. We're looking for emotional connection. We're looking for depth of feeling, and we're going through the same kind of haphazard process of self-discovery. And the older we get, the more sophisticated it gets, right? Because I was just kind of figuring it out, and it was laughable, right? But the older it gets, the more sophisticated it gets, the more refined we get in the ways we feel ourselves to be authentic. But it's always the same idea. And for a little while it satisfies, and then it doesn't anymore. And then you move on to the next thing. And then find your true self. For a little while it satisfies, and then it doesn't anymore. And you move on to the next thing. And you can go your whole life that way. And in the back of your mind, you're wondering, is this really passion? Is this really who I am? Is this really what it means to be fully alive? What is true of life is this: a lot of things can make us feel alive for a moment or a day or a week or a year. But the true self is elusive because the true self is not self-sustaining. The true self can't be bought at the Diesel store. But we can only find deep, sustained, lifelong meaning and passion in one place: our relationship with God. That's how we were designed. That's where satisfaction can be found. Matthew 16:25, Jesus goes on, whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. What Jesus shows us throughout his ministry is that deep satisfaction, real passion, real life is really possible, but it won't come through the endless process, the bottomless pit, literally, it has no end, of looking for our true selves. You won't tap into passion, sustained passion, through any other means than dying to yourself. When you lose yourself, when you lose your life, when you lose these fixated ideas we have about how do we get satisfaction, then we're going to find real life. So what's Jesus talking about? What is that? Well, really, we're going to explore this idea throughout this series, right? How do we really die to self, and how do we really come to this new life that Jesus has for us? But the one aspect that I want to talk to you today, and I think it's essential for finding sustained passion, is this: we must let the solitary self pass away. In my natural life, I am looking for myself through self-discovery. I am looking to be sustained and to find passion by being fully myself, which is fundamentally isolating. If you're just looking into yourself for a sense of like who I am, and if I just move my heart around enough, I'll eventually find the right place. You are just looking to yourself. What Jesus is saying is, if you want to be alive, if you want to be fully alive, then stop looking inward, because you're not going to find it there, and start looking to him. Because it's in that way you need to die to this conception that you are just alone in the world. You have a soul. A soul is your conception of what makes you you, your body, spirit, mind, heart, all that hodgepodge of material and immaterial things. That is your soul, and for all intents and purposes, it's yourself. But here's the thing, you, because of your life experiences, because of what culture tells us, because of what the world tells us, because of what logic tells us, what our minds tell us, because of the sin at work in you, you believe that you are just alone. It's all up to you to find anything good in life. And if you don't do the work, you're never going to find it. But what Jesus shows us is that through him, we can have the thing that we actually really need: companionship with God in our soul. You can actually know what it is to know God. And it's only God who can satisfy that. It's only God who can be a true companion of the soul, since God is everywhere. God is in there with you if you just listen and turn to him. You know why I loved the Smashing Pumpkins? Because they put into words my loneliness. Those are angry songs. That's an angry band. And it's just so angsty and life is so difficult, and I used to be a little boy. I was 12. Discovering something about yourself is always satisfying in some way, right? Because it's showed me something that I knew about myself, I felt about myself, but I didn't have words for. So this thing put into words expressed something that was true, deep within me, and that really connect. But music couldn't cure my loneliness. It could just tell me it was there. It could just show me it was there, and I didn't know it was there, and it was there, but it couldn't cure it. Jesus says to his disciples before he leaves them, in John 15:15, "No longer do I call you slaves. Slave doesn't know what his master is doing, but I call you friends. For all the things I've heard from the Father, I've made known to you." We've got an idea in our heads, all of us do, is that we are just so alone. You can be sitting in this room right now, there's 50 people here, you could just feel entirely alone. You could go throughout your day, you could be surrounded by people who love you, and you could feel entirely alone. You can be a solitary self, right? That's just what the world is like. We can even think of God in such a way that we're just alone, where it's just like, man, he is just this like slave master. And I'm just a slave, like I'm just a nobody. I'm not cared for or loved for. But what the gospel is, it's what Jesus is telling people. He says, like, I've come into the world and now I call you friends. Like, I want to know you. I want to break this isolation and the separation that you feel, that you keep telling yourself is true, that you're totally alone and that you're unloved and unlovable, and the only way to have a satisfaction in your life is just to get one other thing and find another thing and experience another thing. Jesus keeps going on to the disciples, and he tells them, no, like, you're my friends. I've come for you. I've known you. I've called you, predestined you, made it so that nothing can separate us any longer. Jesus understands my loneliness, and he offers to cure it. The gospel is the good news that we are orphans no longer. When we come to know God, when we're washed away from our sin, like when that stuff's washed away, when we come in to know him, we are not alone any longer. The way of Jesus is the death of the lonely soul and the birth of a soul that knows itself to be family. John 1:8 says this. He was not the light. He's talking about John the Baptist. Oh, I should have skipped it forward. Yeah, here we go. There was a true light which was coming into the world. It enlightens every man. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. He came to his own. To those who were his own did not receive him, but as many as received him, he gave them the right to become children of God, even those who just believe in his name, who were born not of blood. The gospel is this news that Jesus has come into the world. God has taken on flesh, come into the world to seek and save that which was lost. And as many who would receive him can become family, children of God. He offers adoption. He gives us the right to be family, to be loved, to be known, to be cared for, to no longer be alone. And he isn't asking us to just grow up and get over it. He's asking us to be like a child who just knows how to receive love from their father. That's maturity. A child doesn't have a sense of their loneliness. A child just loves to be embraced. He came in like light into the world, and so our calling is to be like the tree. It's like planted in the sun, in the light, walking in the light, knowing his fellowship, not sustaining myself, not striving always to find a source of life, because Jesus has literally come down and provided everything I need to live and thrive and grow. We don't have to do it alone. And so many of us are living like trees, like stretching ourselves. We're looking for resonance. We're looking for passion in life and everything. We're taking on new identities. We're chasing after our authentic self endlessly. And really, we're just like trees. We are amputating ourselves through disappointment, through another thing that doesn't satisfy. We just cast that thing off and act like it didn't happen. And life is exhausting like that. It's exhausting to live like that, to endlessly search for meaning inside the self. But passion, deep satisfaction is right in our reach. That's what Jesus makes happen. He comes down, he breaks the separation so that you can know God, you can be in the light. Worship team is going to come up, and we're actually going to take communion. I want us to think about communion for a second, because what we do is we take some bread and we say, this is Jesus' body broken for us, and we take some juice and we say, this is Jesus' blood poured out for us, right? And we do that in remembrance of him. We remember the sacrifice. We remember what he's done. And the reason that we remember what he's done is because that is the basis on which that passion and that joy and that life has come into the world, that he's done it. So much in life, I feel like, man, I just have to work really hard to be my authentic self. The gospel is that Jesus has done all the work so that you could have fullness of life, if only you'd see it. I want to read Romans 10:6 to you. It says this: the righteousness based on faith, that is, confidence in what God has done, speaks as follows: do not say in your heart, who will ascend into heaven, that is, to bring Christ down, or who will descend into abyss, that is, to bring Christ up from the dead. But what does it say? It says this: the word is near you, in your mouth and in your heart. That is the word of faith which we are preaching. That if you confess with your mouth Jesus as Lord, and you believe in your heart that he raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For with the heart a person believes, resulting in righteousness, and with the mouth he confesses, resulting in salvation. For Scripture says, whoever believes in him will not be disappointed. And how much are we disappointed with life? How much does life just disappoint us? What we're reminded of in the gospel is if we would just do this simple thing, not trying to climb our way to heaven through being awesome, right? Not descending down into hell and being pathetic and weak, but simply just standing where we are and understanding it's Jesus who's come near. It's on that basis that we have life with him. And you don't have to be better or worse than you are. You just have to be right where you're at. And you just have to have enough belief to understand that he's done it. He's put you in the light. If only you would open your eyes and live accordingly. If only you would open your eyes and understand, like, this is the simple faith that we have. It's a simple faith which just says, yes, Jesus, I can see you've done the work, and I can find true satisfaction. I can find companionship for my soul, passion, peace, purpose, productivity. I can find all these things in you if only I would just come before you and rest in what you've done. But like Tim Keller says, like this, the heart is an idol factor. We chase after other things to satisfy us. We create new things to satisfy us when the true satisfaction is right before us. It's right here. He's put it right here. And so we're going to take communion and just a little logistics. Got it not in little hermetically sealed things because I just felt like we had to open it up, okay? There are some hermetically sealed things in the back. If you're just like, there's a lot of people have been close to that, I don't want that, you can go ahead and have the one that's certified germ-free. I think the other ones are good, and there's gluten-free in the front if you need that. It's good, guys. It's good. And just one little housekeeping thing. So, like, come up this aisle and go back this way so we don't have a crazy traffic jam, right? If you're over here, you guys go in the back and you circle around. Okay. And as you do that, like, I really wanted us to get out of our seats because I wanted us to understand, like, something about the way this is. Like, it's like Jesus has done the work. He died on the cross. He did that 2,000 years ago. And he wants us to understand that because of what he did then, his broken body, his poured out blood, like, you can now have life. And it's as simple as taking a little walk. It's as simple as turning your eyes to him, opening up, saying, Jesus, look, I've pursued all these other things, these other schemes, these other plans, these other ways to feel alive, and I'm just going to put it down, and I'm going to understand that probably, because you're telling me in your word, that the way to have life and peace, satisfaction, passion, all this stuff that I have, it's actually more like just sitting with you at a table, receiving from you. I don't have to bake the bread. I don't have to squeeze the grape juice. You've brought everything that I need to have fellowship with you. You took my sin away. You died in my place so that there would be no excuse left. All I need to do is look to you, Jesus. All I need to do is just take that 10 steps. That simple thing, Lord, of just saying, yes, Lord, I want you. I want what you have. God, life has been disappointing. Even sometimes I've been disappointed in you. But I come again to your faithful word, Lord, and I ask you, I rely on you, Lord, would you be faithful? And so, Jesus, I come on behalf of everyone here today, Lord, those who have believed in you before, those who have just begun to believe, Lord, wherever we're at, Lord, would you teach us to see your faithfulness, Lord? It is all around us. If only we would open our eyes, God, how good and great and gracious you are, King Jesus, and how blind we can be. Lord, let us see. Lord, even as we come, Lord, as we grab hold of what you've done, we remind ourselves, Lord, would you fill us and satisfy us? Lord, would you show us and send your Holy Spirit to remind us of your word and of your goodness, Lord, to remind us of our adoption because of what you've done, to remind us, Lord, that you are present, you have not abandoned us. Lord, there is a future and a hope for us, and it is all in you, Jesus. Lord, we come to your sacrifice expectant and full of faith. Amen. So come on up throughout this song.
Touching every heart, I worship you, I worship you. You are here, healing every heart, I worship you, I worship. You are here, you are here, turning lives around. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are.
are the one who has made a way, God, and that's what we depend on, Lord. Your way, always and ever, God. Lord, just teach us, Lord. Teach us to find that deep satisfaction in you and what you've done, Lord. Your work, your resources, your power, your grace, your mercy, your plans. God, we can come up with all sorts of replacements, God, but none is like the true thing, Lord. Your way, you and you alone, our souls cry out for you, Lord. And so satisfy us, I pray. Lord, satisfy us, Lord. Teach us to really just go deep into this sense of who you are, to know you better, I pray, in Jesus' name. Hey, so we're going to do 3 more weeks of this series, and I realized, like, this didn't get very practical. We were just kind of doing communion a little bit. In the next couple weeks, we're going to get practical, because if you're anything like me, like, you can say, well, I know all that, Pastor. Like, I know, I'm just supposed to love Jesus, but how? Like, how do I get around it? And ultimately, there are things about life and the way that we live it in the modern world, pressures, cross pressures, that are coming up against that satisfaction and that peace. There's things that are just happening all around you you have no control over. Some you do. That are getting in the way of your deep satisfaction in Jesus. So we're going to talk about those things over the next couple of weeks. So I would encourage you just to come back. If you're just like, okay, I want that, but what is that? Like come back. And if you know people who like really need to figure it out, okay, like maybe this Jesus thing is cool, but like what does it mean to actually live like this according to all these things, according to true satisfaction in Jesus? Come back, and we're going to talk about that more. God bless you guys. Enjoy this beautiful sunny weather. That's a prayer. I was still praying. All right. See you guys.